Hi, friends, and welcome to the Autoimmune Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Allie. This is a space for moms navigating life with autoimmune disease, the exhaustion, the guilt, the strength it takes to show up, and the hope that we can still live full, meaningful lives even when our bodies make things harder. Each week, we'll have honest conversations with moms living with autoimmune disease, share practical support, and remind each other we are not alone in this journey. Before we dive in, if this podcast resonates with you, it would mean so much to me if you would follow or subscribe wherever you're listening, leave a review, and share this episode with another mom who needs it. You can also connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the Autoimmune Mom Podcast, where I share encouragement, resources, updates about new episodes. If you're looking for extra support, you can download my free Autoimmune Mom Survival Guide through the link in my bio. Let's get into today's episode. Hi, Cece. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to hear about your story.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, I've been thinking, I don't even know where to start. And I don't know if most people have the same kind of story where you don't really even know where this started. And yeah, so I don't know if that's common or if it's just part of my story, but I don't even know where this all started. It's so
Well,
complicated.
I don't think it's uncommon. I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, I probably was symptomatic in high school, and
Oh,
diagnosed in my
wow.
30s. So where do you start the story is
Yeah.
an honest
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, wow. So I feel like I kind of backed into this. So my focus, I'm a mom of three, and my focus has been on my children for many, 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 many years. And we went through many different practitioners, many different treatments. I always knew, and luckily, I guess for us, all of our stuff kind of flew under the radar. Nobody was really very sick. Nobody was really showing any strong symptoms of anything, really. But I
Mhm.
just knew as a mom that something just wasn't quite right. And it kept nagging at me and nagging at me. And, you
Was
know,
this with all of your children? Or sorry to
with
interrupt.
with all, yeah,
All.
with all of them, and a variety of different things were happening. And, I of course, I would start with the pediatrician, and the pediatrician would be like, "Oh, well, everything looks good." And, I think once I managed to get, a pediatrician to run labs on one of my kids, and nothing really came up. I think there was low iron or something. And so anyway, it just was, for many years, I just felt like something wasn't quite right. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I connected with a bunch of other moms. I was in all the groups. I was reading all the books. I actually, for a very long time, I thought it was our parenting. So I started reading parenting books. I was doing parenting classes. We even hired a parenting coach.
Was this because there was behaviors that, like, it wasn't all physical and you were seeing
Right,
different
right,
behaviors?
right. So for
Yeah.
us, I mean, there were some soft signs. And again, I would go to the pediatrician, and it was always a lot of things that, like, I'd see like circles under their eyes, bags under their eyes. There was this weird thing with one of my daughter's hair. That's why the pediatrician agreed to run labs, because I thought her hair, like, it just started breaking off, and there was just a lot of weirdness that I couldn't quite put my finger on. So, it and then, yes, I mean, there was a lot of sleep issues, there was a lot of behavioral issues, but just at home, everybody did fine at school. There were no, teachers would be like, "Well, my kids were described as perfect children at school." And so at some point, my husband and I think we were like, "Okay, it must be us. We've got to figure out how to discipline three children." So we started taking parenting classes and reading books. And I was in all these groups of, at first it was like when my children were born, at first it was, I'm trying to think the name of those groups. It was like the highly sensitive baby, or like high needs baby.
Mhm.
So I started, putting myself in groups like that, trying to figure out, and nothing ever quite fit. And then once we got into, like, I don't know, probably late elementary school, that's when I decided, okay, let's just do a psycho ed evaluation. Let's just do a full psychoeducational evaluation and see what's going on. Because, there definitely is like some ADHD in the family. And so I thought, okay, let's just see, because we had kind of tried everything else. We even had a parenting coach come over to our house and kind of see us in action. Like
Yeah.
everything we tried, nothing helped. Nothing helped. And so then we went that route. And one of the very first questions that the psychologist asked me, she said, "Have you ever heard of pandas?" And I had, but I kind of dismissed it because I thought, well, I mean, yeah, we've had a lot of strep, but I just, I don't know. Like I'd been in one group. I also had been in like a biomedical healing group. And
Okay.
that was a really deep rabbit hole to go in. And it
Yeah.
was very scary and it was full of all kinds of stuff that I was just like, it was just too much. So anyway, she was the first one that mentioned pandas to me, and I thought, I mean, maybe, but like I just don't know. So we went ahead and went through the evaluation, had all three kids evaluated, and we had all kinds of things come up that I wasn't quite expecting. We got autism diagnoses, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia. I'm probably forgetting things, anxiety, OCD, like
Mm.
all these things came up. And so I was like, okay, great. We've got answers. And, so I went about the psychologist's recommendations, and nothing got any better. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. And I put myself in groups that,
Yeah.
I like joined a ADHD group. I joined an autism group. And I still just felt like in my gut, I was like, this something just still doesn't feel right. This is not fitting what is going on with my family.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing I always tell, I've connected with a lot of moms myself over the years. I mean, literally probably hundreds and hundreds. And the thing that I always say when I first start talking to a mom is trust your gut. Because for
Yeah.
so many years, like I just knew, like I couldn't quite figure it out, but I just knew like something's going on and I don't really know what it is.
Right.
Um, and so it's such a long, to make a very, very long story short, I somehow things started getting worse. So 2020 was kind of a good thing for us. We started, all the kids were home, started in March, and we stopped having a lot of the issues we were having, and it was a
How
nice
old were your
break.
at this point? Sorry to
Oh
interrupt,
gosh,
but
in 2020, they would have been, oh gosh, that makes me have to do math. So let's see. Right now, they're all teenagers. So I think at the time they were like 8, 9, and 11,
okay.
roughly.
Close enough.
And so having that break from having to be in school every day and getting up and getting ready for school and needing a good night's sleep and all that, like that just kind of stopped. Like we didn't have to worry about that so much. But then when school started back up at the end of 2020, things definitely were not good for one child in particular. She had what was, it didn't seem to be anything significant. She tested negative for strep, she tested negative for COVID and flu. But kinda after that, it was like this giant snowball just going downhill that was like, okay, my very high achiever, bright, well-liked child just started having really massive issues. She couldn't get up out of bed, she was refusing school, and she was the one that always loved school and always did really well and loved schoolwork. Like, we never had homework battles, like, she loved it. And that was, like, the first thing I saw was that, and it was kinda downhill from there. It took 13, I counted one time, it took 13 practitioners to finally get a diagnosis of autoimmune encephalitis, which is basically PANDAS. It's the more widely accepted medical diagnosis. And so once we got that diagnosis, then we were able to kind of go forward with treatment.
So, can you just explain kind of what it I mean, I know you've kind of given us her symptoms, but is there like a quick little
Yeah.
explanation of what it actually is?
Yeah, so PANS is the big umbrella, and
Yeah.
PANDAS, most people, if they've heard of anything, it's usually PANDAS.
Yeah.
I feel like that is just more well known because there is such a strong connection with, okay, usually the child has strep And overnight, that child changes. Like, it's like a light switch. Your child goes to bed, they wake up the next morning, they have, severe separation anxiety. They
Okay.
have OCD. They start needing to, OCD is super tricky. I've learned so much about OCD over the years. A lot of people think they know it and they think it's, excessive hand washing or needing to, make sure the light or the stove is off or number kind of rituals. Well, OCD is that, but it's also really severe intrusive thoughts. And sometimes the obsession and the compulsion are mental. And so you cannot see it at all. So a lot of the early warning signs I missed because it was all internal.
Yeah.
But basically, your child is this sweet, happy child, and then overnight they kind of change. Now, that is the kind of standard textbook way that PANDAS plays out. Now, for us, of course, it wasn't the standard textbook way it played out. I honestly think we probably had a case of PANDAS when probably all my children were little and it just wasn't caught. And it then developed into a complex case of PANS. And
Okay.
PANS, I probably should tell you, PANS stands for Pediatric Acute Onset Neuropsychiatric Syndrome. PANDAS stands for Pediatric Autoimmune Neuropsychiatric Syndrome, syndrome disorder associated with strep. It's a mouthful.
Okay.
And so we got the PANS diagnosis, and then to really help us with treatment, the neurologist gave her a autoimmune encephalitis diagnosis because that way it's, PANS, PANDAS, it's been around for a long time. Unfortunately, it still is not widely accepted and treated and diagnosed by your regular pediatrician. Most people can't just go into the regular pediatrician and say, my child has these issues without the pediatrician saying, okay, let me refer you to a psychiatrist. This sounds like anxiety, or this sounds like, you know, some other kind of psychiatric disorder that needs a psych med. And that's what we were first told. And we went that route. And like I said, it took about 13 practitioners. We saw a variety of psychiatrists, neurologists, pediatricians. We went to some holistic practitioners. We saw a ND. We saw, just anybody and everybody. And finally, it was a functional medicine neurologist that diagnosed two of my kids. So that's been such a long journey. And I do want to bring awareness to PANS and PANDAS and autoimmune encephalitis and basal ganglia encephalitis. They are all, I think that since I've been in this world and seen like it, there are so many children. Like I have met so many moms over the years, and it's not going away. It really isn't. I think COVID has been such a huge trigger, and in a way, it's really been important because, you know, people do believe in long COVID. People have seen that long COVID is a thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's really kind of helped the PANS PANDAS world out because it's all very similar in nature. It's just caused by different things. And so I said that I kind of backed up into the autoimmune stuff because what happened was, you know, I thought that I was just really stressed. And so the first thing I thought, I was like, I basically diagnosed myself with adrenal fatigue because I was like, okay, it's all the stress. It's, living in fight or flight constantly as a mom. It is me trying to I would be up all night long researching all kinds of things, trying to figure out what is going on. What is going on? How do I help my kids? Who do we see? I was in groups. It became like a 24/7 thing. I wasn't sleeping. I just wasn't functioning very well. And so I
Right.
thought, okay, I have adrenal fatigue because of all this stress. And it just kind of kept going, and then the symptoms kept kind of piling on, and it was never, again, for me, it was never this big health
Explosion.
issue. per
Yeah.
se. It was just all these little kind of nagging things. And I would go to the doctor and they wouldn't really know what to do with me. And they would say, well, your labs look great. And I think for a while, I was ANA negative. I mean, nothing was really popping up until we moved 2 years ago. We renovated our house and we moved into a moldy rental.
Oh no.
And within hours of being in that rental, I started having rashes. And at first, and I actually back it up like maybe 6 months or so. Again, I told you, like, we all had these soft signs, and none of them were like just so awful. Like, I started having what I just tell there was some kind of rash. And it was on my back. I couldn't see it, but I'd try to look in the mirror and I would get my husband to take pictures of it. And I knew it was a rash because I could feel it. And I knew like I had like this weird feeling. And my husband would be like, well, if you look at the right light, like, let me get the camera at the right angle. Like, it wasn't a bad rash.
Yeah.
But I still knew that, like, so again, these really soft signs over many, many years until we moved into mold, and my body went freaking haywire at that point. And then I had really visible signs. I woke up with a butterfly rash. I had hives all over my neck. I thought I was dying. I really thought I was dying. I remember sitting in my doctor's office and I just had just the absolute worst feeling. Like the fatigue and the achiness,
Yeah.
and the rash was kind of itchy and burning, and it was causing my eyes were burning. And the first diagnosis I got, which, and I remember the doctor coming in and she kind of looked at me and she was like, I think you have pink eye. And I was like,
It's so beyond pink eye.
I know, and I was like, and so she prescribed me, medicine for pink eye, and I went and filled it, but I never used it because I was like, I know I don't have pink eye. Like, I know this is not pink eye. And then she did agree. She was like, well, maybe it could be shingles because the thing on my back,
That's what I was gonna ask. Did it
yeah,
feel like
she
shingles?
it kinda like the way I described it feeling, she
Yeah.
thought, "Well, that sounds like shingles, doesn't look like shingles, but sounds like shingles." And so she treated me for shingles, and I felt amazing once I went on an antiviral med. And I was like, "Okay." But then next month again, butterfly rash, broke out in hives, and I went back to the doctor again. I thought I was dying. I mean, every single time I went, I was just like, "Ugh." And that finally, I think when I went in that time, the rash was really, really bad. And she immediately thought lupus. And that shocked me because, just a month ago, they were saying, "Oh, we think it's pink eye," you
Yeah.
know? And I was like, I could tell, like, by the way I felt. It felt so systemic. And again, to back up maybe like 9 months prior, again, another soft sign that at the time I didn't really know what it meant, but hindsight's 2020. For us, we started putting all these pieces together kind of over the years, and it was like, huh, okay. Um, so about 9 months prior, I had injured my shoulder and I was doing PT, and I was going to PT for like 3 times a week for probably 6 to 8 weeks, I would say. And I wasn't improving.
Yeah.
And finally the PT was like, Cece, I've literally done everything I know to do. And she said, I think something systemic is going on. She's like, I
Yeah.
don't know what. She said, but it just feels systemic to me. And like that word kind of stuck in my brain. I was like, systemic. I was like, all right, well, I don't know what that means,
Yeah. It doesn't
but
sound good, but
yeah, it doesn't sound good.
yeah.
And so at the time, as a family, we all started to see, I don't know what her qualifications were, but it wasn't a traditional Western medical doctor. It was a holistic
Yeah.
health practitioner, and she did quantum muscle testing. I mean, we've tried anything and everything.
I've done that. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So we started doing that, and and she was the first one that did a really deep dive, like, labs for me. She did some functional medicine labs. She took a deep dive look at my thyroid, And she was the first person that said, "Well, you have an autoimmune thyroid." And I was like, "Okay, well, like, what does that mean?" And
Yeah.
because she wasn't a doctor, she didn't really diagnose. She's this holistic health practitioner, and so
Yep.
she was just gonna treat the symptoms. And for us, for both me and my kids, the thing that I've realized is it I don't know if it's any one thing. For us, it's been this total load or this bucket that just got so many insults in it that
Mhm.
finally it started dripping over. And
Mhm.
I mean, the thing that caused the bucket to drip over, I don't know if that's the thing that was the biggest in the bucket,
Yeah.
but there was a straw that finally broke the camel's back kind of for all of us. And you know, in a on a spectrum, I guess you could say. So that was like the first time I had ever heard autoimmune, for myself. And
Yeah.
there definitely is a connection. I'm not good with numbers. I'm not a researcher. I don't read the research. So,
Yeah.
but I can tell you from talking to other moms, and I'm not just talking about a few, I'm talking about hundreds of moms. There is some kind of connection. Now, whether it's causation, I don't know. But a lot of moms with kids who have pandas or pans, a lot of them have celiac. A lot of them have Hashimoto's.
Yep.
There are some that have Crohn's. So there is some connection. I don't know what came first. Like, again, I know you're getting all different kinds of people's stories, and hopefully you will talk to a person who, is very much in the know with what the research and the medical literature says. But I can
Yeah.
just tell you, just like
Anecdotally.
just anecdotally talking to other moms, like, there's a connection.
For
And
sure.
for us, I think the big things were mold. I think that absolutely was a trigger for us. At the end of the day, when we tease this all apart, like, will we all have autoimmune conditions? I don't actually know. My doctor who I'm seeing now um thinks that if I do her treatment and we attack it aggressively, that that it actually will kind of reverse itself, and that it won't necessarily be an autoimmune thing. That because mine is immune driven, and
Yeah.
so it's all of this. What she has told me, and this is my understanding of it. I'm not a medical person.
Yeah.
My understanding of it is the reason why I'm ANA positive, the reason why I have, a high RA factor, the reason why I'm trying to think what other labs have like come up. I think those are the main ones were ANA positive and RA factor, just like,
Yeah.
really high multiple times.
Yeah.
And her explanation of it is that my immune system is like so dysregulated and so out of whack that it just doesn't really know what's going on. And
Yeah.
so we're treating now like these underlying infections that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
It came up. So turns out I did have shingles, a very, I mean, very, very obvious case of shingles. Like I wasn't breaking out in the traditional rashes. I
Yeah.
wasn't having the traditional symptoms because I have this immune driven dysfunction.
Correct.
It wasn't showing up like the common rash. And that's why, like I knew I felt it, but it just wasn't presenting like it. And so, I
Because your
mean, she,
immune system is so hyperactive, it probably hid a lot
yeah,
of the symptoms because
yes,
I mean, I find this now that I'm on different medications that are helping my immune system calm down or however you want to look at it.
right.
I didn't have a cold for 15 years. Like I never got sick. Never.
Yeah.
Because my immune
Yeah.
system was like attacking. Everybody could be throwing up in my house and I would be like, let's go to the store. Like my immune system was
Yeah.
so overactive all the time. That was
Yeah.
like the one thing that I noticed. Of all
Same.
the other miserable things that came, I was like, well, I guess this isn't
Yeah, and
terrible.
and same for me, but
Yeah.
I thought it was like a good thing.
Yes.
I
Yes.
thought I was like, "I am this super healthy, strong mom." And in a way I was. Like, I will say in my 40s, I took such great care of myself. I was working out all the time. I was eating well. I
Hmm.
really, really, really took very good care of myself. But the stress was extreme. We were in crisis after crisis after crisis, and we didn't know what was going on. And so for many years, we were searching for answers, and I mean, it was very stressful, and I wasn't getting sick, and I just didn't really, I thought it was a good thing. And then what I find really interesting, and I don't know if this has happened for you, but so I have had COVID numerous times, but it's so not traditional COVID. For
Yeah.
me, COVID for me is panic attacks,
Oh, yeah.
like massive anxiety, waking up in the middle of the night with a panic attack. Like that is what COVID does for me. Insomnia.
Oh,
It never really gave me a fever. Or, I mean, I think one time I had some aches and pains and like some chills,
yeah.
but like it
So, how did you come to the conclusion, like, okay, I'm waking up with these things? Like, what led you to a COVID test for those? Like, I would never have a panic attack and be like, let me take a COVID test.
Right, right,
Yeah.
and I that wasn't my first thought. What
Yeah.
happened, and it's so interesting how life happens sometimes, but my stepmother called me one day, and she thought my dad had had a stroke, and she was like, "I'm calling 911, meet us at the hospital." And I was, devastated. Rushed to the
Yeah.
hospital, and my stepmother tells me what had been going on with my dad. And, again, I'm not a medical professional, but I was like, oh my God, it sounded like a stroke.
Yeah.
He lost the ability to speak.
Hmm.
He lost control of his bodily functions. He couldn't remember how to walk. Like it really seemed like something attacked him neurologically,
Yeah.
He had COVID. They did the standard neurological stuff, the test for stroke, and he passed that, and they said, "Well, let's just swab him for flu and COVID." And my
Yeah.
stepmother was like, "Well, we haven't, okay."
Yeah.
And he came back positive for COVID.
Wow.
And it was so crazy because just a few days before, I had been having one of those. I had never heard of a flare until I got into this world. I didn't know what a flare was like 5 years ago, and I was having what I thought was a flare that Saturday, and I had taken my dad to lunch, and it was just the 2 of us in the car, and he lives kinda far out from where we are, and so we were in the car together, just the 2 of us, and my dad doesn't get out much, so I knew when he tested positive that day in the hospital, I was like, I had COVID and I gave it to him, because after I dropped him off, I went to urgent care because I just had this feeling like
Yeah.
I had this pain like right below above my stomach and right below my rib cage.
Okay.
And it was kind of radiating over to the side. And I went to urgent care and they did not test me for flu or COVID. They sent me for an ultrasound of my gallbladder. And well, that was normal. They were like, yeah, normal. They did some labs, normal. So I didn't think anything of it. I think I took some Pepsid and I was like, well, I'm not really feeling great. And then that Monday, I had a panic attack while driving. And I thought something is not right with me. And I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. I didn't really know what. And then Wednesday was when my dad was taken to the hospital and tested positive for COVID. And then I was like, I had COVID. I had COVID. I was the
Yeah.
one that gave it to him. And I was just having all these weird symptoms.
Yeah.
And so then at that point in time, I decided, okay, I'm going to see a functional medicine doctor, like an MD. And I was still breaking out in these rashes. At that point, I think I had gone to I had gone to a rheumatologist, a GI doctor. I'd gone to 2 dermatologists. I'd been to my gynecologist. I'd been to my eye doctor. I mean, I had talked to all these people.
Hmm.
And the rheumatologist, the thing she said to me was, my RA factor was high. And she was like, well, she did the physical exam of all my joints. And she was like, you're not presenting like you have rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah.
She said, but, you know, if anything gets red or swollen, come back. And she told me, she said, sometimes it takes 10 years for autoimmune to really show in people. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, well, so what do I do? Just wait for 10 years to see if I
Yeah.
develop an autoimmune condition? Like, I don't
Wild.
feel well. I was still breaking out in all these rashes and things just weren't right. Like
Yeah.
every month I was getting, and it, and finally at one point I was like, all right, I was tracking it, but I was also so in the weeds that I wasn't really making the connection that it was a monthly thing. Like
Yeah.
every month I would break out in hives,
Yeah.
whether or not I was having a period. I was still breaking out in hives. And, I'm in my 50s. So I'm like, well, is it perimenopause? Is it autoimmune? Is
Yeah.
it stress?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. The GI doctor, he was a jerk, and he basically looked at me, and I had tested positive for mono at some point in time, but my liver enzymes were like sky high. And I mean, again, obviously things were not right within me.
Right. Yes.
And and when I started going to doctors for myself, what I told them was, listen, I have children I've got one child with autoimmune encephalitis. I've got one child with an autism diagnosis. I was just like, I would go in and I would say, as a mom, I've got these kids that have all these different things going on. I
Right.
want you to look at me and I want you to run every single test possible, that you
Yeah.
think that you like. I want you to dig into my health to see if there's something I've passed on, to see if there's a reason, see if there's something,
Yep.
genetic. I mean, we did genetic testing. We've
Yep.
done like so much. And I really kept begging all of my doctors, like, I am the mom, like, and something has like, just please dig. And I remember this GI doctor looked at me and he got really angry and he said, "This is mono-induced hepatitis, period. End of story." And I was like, okay, I'm not going to get anywhere with you.
Yeah.
So again, I just kept digging. And again, the gynecologist, she confirmed, like, you know, that there are multiple times in women's lives when autoimmune things can kind of pop up. It's like after you have babies, menopause, perimenopause, and I think maybe
Hormonal
even she
shifts.
said,
Yeah.
what's that?
Big hormonal shifts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And she also said, it could take 5 to 10 years. And again, that just wasn't a good explanation for me. I'm like,
Terrible
okay, so
explanation.
I'm supposed to wait and see, do I really develop Hashimoto's? Or
Yeah.
do I just have like this autoimmune thyroid? Or do I really develop lupus? Like I continued to have like a butterfly rash and hives and, I mean, so then I decide, all right, I'm going to go with this functional medicine MD. And initially, she was great. She ran all the labs. She looked at my thyroid. I was continuing to have, the breakouts of rashes and stuff. And I went to her and I said, my goal here is, what can you discover about me that might help my kids? Like, what can you do? Because we had been through so many treatments with my children. One had an IVIG, and initially that was amazing. It was a life changing, life saving infusion. And we did 6 of those. And I mean, it was great, but then it stopped working. And so we were like, okay, now what would we do? And so anytime we kind of came to a lull with our kids of, okay, what do we do now? I would try to bring the focus back to me and like, okay, is there something, and kids don't really like to be poked. I don't either, but I was always like, is there some kind of labs you can run on me that might show something for our kids?
Shed some light on that.
Yeah. So I asked this of this one doctor I was seeing, and she didn't get it. Like she took a functional approach, but she didn't get what my end goal was.
Right.
And she kept saying to me, you know, let's not search for these triggers because we could be searching forever. And at the time I was like, okay, I get it. But now, again, hindsight's 2020. I think back and I was like, But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to search for the triggers, even if it meant like, all right, going on a really restricted diet. Like, I wanted to know, like, what are these triggers? Because, like, I don't feel well. And I have always said in the PANDAS world, if a kid doesn't feel well, they don't behave well. If your kid feels well, they typically will behave. And so for me, I've always seen misbehavior in air quotes as a symptom of something much bigger. And so, I really wanted to look for triggers. And so this doctor was great, not a good fit. So I kept searching. We decided to do a different treatment with my daughter. She went and had some Rituxan infusions. And as a part of that, that doctor tested her for Lyme and co-infections.
Okay, yeah.
When I went in the second time around with the really violent rash after they had said, this was the month after they said it was pink eye. One of the things she tested me for was Lyme. She did a whole panel, a whole autoimmune panel, did Lyme disease. And that came
Lyme
up
is
negative.
it's such a tricky thing. I mean, I'm from the Northeast where Lyme
Yep.
is an epidemic, and it's so
Right.
hard to test for, and it's so
Yep.
hard to treat,
Yep.
and it's so hard to get a doctor to acknowledge it.
Yep.
Like, unless you do the 2 tests that a regular doctor will do, like, they don't
Yep.
dig. I've had
Yeah.
family members really suffer. It's hard.
Yeah. 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 So, and from being in the PANDAS world, there is a strong overlap with Lyme and co-infections. And
Uh-huh.
so I had always asked, well, I have these 3 kids. Should we test for Lyme and co-infections? And the very first doctor we saw, they were like, no, we don't really think so. I mean, have you ever traveled to the Northeast? And, they kind of asked some questions. And I was like, yes, I was born in Massachusetts. We've traveled to Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, New York, and they really weren't convinced that they needed
Yeah.
to test. The doctor who was doing the Rituxan for my daughter, that was the first thing she did. She right out the bat, she
Awesome.
tested for Lyme and co-infections with a specialty lab, not with
Not
LabCorp. So
okay.
she ran a bunch of labs with LabCorp, but then we also did a specialty lab. And that came back positive for Babesia, which it's like a parasite-like infection in the blood. It can be caused by ticks,
Yeah.
lice, fleas, all kinds of things. Um, but is a co-infection of Lyme disease. So when she came back positive, I was like, okay. Her doctor agreed to test me. And so lo and behold, I came back positive for Bartonella. And so at that point, I was like, all right, this is too big of a thing to just say, I mean, to take chances about. So
Right.
I I found a functional medicine LLMD, which stands for Lyme Literate Medical Doctor. They have been trained by ILADS, which is like the International Association for Lyme Disease. They know their stuff. They are medical doctors that do believe in Lyme disease, both Lyme disease that is like acute and both chronic. So started going to her, and that has been like the total game changer. I went to her, and again, the first thing I said to her, I was like, yes, I am here because I've tested positive for Bartonella and my daughter tested positive for Babesia. And I want to dig into Lyme and what this means for us. But I also want you to know I have 3 children. I went through my whole thing again, and
Yes.
she got it. She understood the assignment,
Is she
and
local?
no, of course not.
Okay.
No.
No.
No,
Yeah.
she's in Atlanta though.
Okay.
So,
So that's her.
she's amazing. She is I don't know how old she is. I would guess that she is I feel like she's at least my age or older, so probably uh, mid 50s. She could be in her 60s. She is a brilliant medical doctor who is so well versed in Lyme, in autoimmune, in immune dysfunction,
Mhm.
dysregulation, in mast cell. And so that is what now we are focusing on is both one child and I are seeing this doctor. It's incredibly expensive. So
This is my thing with functional medicine. It's only
yeah.
functional if you can afford it.
Yeah.
I've done it all in the 16 years I've had something, you name it, I've done it. But
Yeah.
it's not attainable for everybody, unfortunately.
It's not.
Yeah,
And I mean, I do think throughout this whole experience over the past however many years, there are 2 things I always think. The first thing is, financially, how do families that don't have the financial means, how do they do it? I mean,
they don't.
we started out, we had the financial means, and now, I mean, we have spent so much on medical care. Now we're in a not a great financial situation because we've had to go out of pocket for so much stuff.
I say this all the time is that I could have a house in Nantucket for all of the money that I've
Yep,
spent. And
yep,
that is part of the guilt I feel as a mother. Like we have made some serious sacrifices and you do that for your kids all day long. But
right,
my
right,
kids thankfully, I mean, I've kind of treated them with diet and things like that as if they anti-inflammatory diet is kind of how
right,
we do things around here to
right.
preventative stuff. But I have so much guilt about all the money we've taken from this family to treat myself, to
Yeah,
make me functioning. So this is a
yeah,
conversation I have all the time. The
yeah,
system is broken.
yeah,
How many families have put themselves in hock over uh, any medical diagnosis? It's really
yeah,
hard.
yeah. I
And the
mean, it's
stress,
been
like nobody gets to this
yeah,
position in life without being in a ball of stress. Like that's why we're
yes,
all here. Something happens, some
yep,
stress triggered our immune system to do
yep,
something haywire, and
off.
then
Yep.
now we're trying to backpedal this whole way, and then you add finances in, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah. It's really hard, and I mean, I am a certified mindset coach, and so, like, I know all the tools, I have all the tools, so this is the second thing that I always
yes,
think of. What do the moms that don't have these tools do? Like, I have been okay for the most part because essentially my mindset coaching certification was 13 months of me having, like, these deep dive, like, mindset sessions for myself. Like, that's how you learn by doing. And so,
yeah,
like, I went through, EMDR and NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. I went through like all these different things myself to learn then how to, help others with their mindset and whatnot and rewiring. And like, I'm really good at it, and I'm just barely surviving. Like, how are moms that don't have these tools and these resources doing? Like, it's hard. And when it's your children and I mean, it's the worst feeling in the world. Studies show that the caregiver burden for parents of a child with PANS or PANDAS is worse than a caregiver of Alzheimer's or cancer, terminal cancer. I mean, it is a stress like no other, really. And so, of course, it kind of, like I said, I kind of backed into this autoimmune world because I knew something was going on with my children. I always had these soft signs, but never really very sick. And then mold and perimenopause, boom, like brought it all out. And it just is it's just crazy how much of it can kind of be controlled, but so much of it, it just kind of came out with the stress.
uh,
Um, and
1000%.
so, yeah. So now, I mean, I found this great doctor and I trust her immensely. I just had more labs done last week and she runs labs that like I've never heard of. Like she is really digging into my immune system. And I mean, everything's popping up IgG positive and IgM positive for a lot of things. And so
Yeah,
it's
it'd
a
be
hard
interesting
treatment.
to get her name. I'm always
Yeah.
looking for when I
Yeah.
tell you I've done every holistic thing that you can imagine, and I'm at the point now because I was diagnosed at 30 and I'm 47 next month.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't even look at my labs anymore. Like it's
Yeah.
I go to the rheumatologist and I'm like, I feel good. I don't even tell them really,
Yeah.
unless I'm in like a massive flare. I don't tell
Right.
them the other things that I do. I don't tell them about it's a checking the box, so I do have to get my infusion. I do now I have like a combination of treatments. I don't I did all holistic stuff for 5 years, not an ounce
Gotcha.
of medication. Um,
Hmm.
And I probably did that 2 years too long. I have a lot of joint damage from doing that.
Uh, yeah.
But, like my mentality was,
Yep.
I'm not, it was in a different spot. So, but yeah, it's super hard to keep, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, because a lot of people will become diagnosed with some kind of rheumatoid or lupus or something like that, and they'll
Mhm.
talk to a friend, and the friend
Mm.
knows me, and then they talk to me, and
Yep.
then I'm almost like a non-certified coach for the first year of their diagnosis. A lot of times it's like, take the
Yeah.
time to grieve, you need to be positive.
Yep.
Yes, it's depressing, get off the Facebook pages, they're miseries, they're centers for
Yeah.
misery. But
Yep.
you know you're so right in that this is a holistic problem with our bodies, and nobody is paying attention to it
Yeah.
holistically. Like, no,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have 10, 15 different doctors that you've mentioned, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
no one
And they
wants
were
to look
all
like Cece.
Yeah. Well, and they were all treating, and again, I would always try to bring in my children, and like the GI doctor, the only thing he cared about were my liver enzymes. He did not care about anything else. He was looking at hepatitis, like that, period. And
Yeah,
he wasn't thinking of anything else. The dermatologist was just looking at the hives and whatever else, and trying to
yeah,
figure out if it was something else. And I really, it has been expensive, but the doctor we have now, she's treating me and one of my kids. And I realized when I started with her, I thought, all right, the only way I'm going to get better is if she's treating my daughter. The only way my daughter is going to get better is if she's treating me. So it's kind of like this package deal, because where did her immune system come from? It came from me, the mom. And
right.
so if I had all these stealth infections while we were living in mold and, had 3 children, like, there are just a lot of things we gotta dig through, and we're just peeling back layer by layer. And I always say I host, monthly calls. I volunteer with an organization called Aspire, and it's a nonprofit that brings awareness and education about PANS and PANDAS and autoimmune encephalitis. But I run monthly support calls for parents in North and South Carolina. And I always say on the call that, like, we have tried anything and everything. I mean, and I will continue to try anything and everything. I mean, at one point in time, I was ordering organic freeze-dried donkey milk from the Azores. I mean, like that's like, you get so desperate. And
Yeah,
then we've also done infusions, and we've also taken steroids, and we've taken
yeah.
antibiotics, and like, DMARDs, and I will try literally anything and everything if it might make our lives better. And I kind
And
of, you also have to have your sense of humor too, because like I always bring up the freeze dried donkey milk because it sounds so absurd. But you read the testimonies of some people that have tried it, and you're like, well, damn, I'm going to order some freeze dried donkey milk
yeah,
too.
it's the least invasive thing you've probably tried. It's
Oh,
just,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing, especially when you're dealing with kids, you
yeah,
do you do go that route. You do, go for muscle testing over
mhm,
blood labs, because
yeah,
what kid wants to have a needle stuck in their arm? What kid
no.
wants to have an infusion? Like, none. And it's not fun, and that's not the way, that's not a normal childhood, and that's not what I want for my children. We tried a lot of interesting things, and some kind of brought relief and some didn't.
So do you
I
like, this is a little off topic, but my daughter, I noticed, has some like things that make me pause for, like, this is a definite inflammatory response to something.
Yeah.
And I work a lot with her and her diet. She's very triggered by her diet. Um Gluten is out of this house anyways, but like almonds really cause
Mm,
skin issues for her and things like that. And she's 12. So I'm
mhm.
trying to, how do you she gets so miserable with her skin sometimes, and I'm like, "Well, you've had a lot of
Mm,
sugar, and you were eating an almond bar the other day, and, like, I
yeah.
know." But how do you tell a 12-year-old that she can't have sugar? And
Yeah.
it's
I
just,
mean, I have to say, I mean, don't look at our family for, like, dietary advice, because with PANS and PANDAS comes restricted eating, and with autism too. I mean, there's like a lot of sensory stuff
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
foods and eating. So sometimes our eating has been so restricted that I mean, one of my kids was so close to getting a feeding tube, had
Yeah.
long COVID, lost a drastic amount of weight, was literally days away from a feeding tube. And so, like, if my kids eat, like,
You're
some days,
fine.
I don't really even care. Like, that child was, having milkshakes and corn dogs and, I mean, just
Yeah.
whatever, I mean, we've kind
Whatever
of
to get
been,
them through. I understand that too,
yeah,
because at one point I was so restrictive in my diet, it was borderline eating disorder. Like I was
yeah,
crazy psycho
yeah,
about what I put in my
yeah,
body and what I didn't put on it, in it, around it, everything. So
yeah.
it's
Well,
balance.
I tend to
Another,
go from one extreme to the other, because this
yes,
time last year I was doing the Siggy elimination diet. I don't know if you've ever heard of that,
yeah,
but that's for histamine. It's a histamine elimination diet. And I mean, I just dove right in, and I did it from like April to July. And then I got so burnt out on
yeah.
eating grilled chicken and leafy greens that I was like, I like, I just can't do it anymore.
There
And
has to
I
be
just,
a balance. There has to
yeah,
be a balance. Like you can't.
yeah,
I did it for like 4 years, and then I was eating
wow,
literally like grilled chicken, and
yeah,
some months I could eat broccoli and some months I couldn't. Like, it was so
yep,
crazy
yeah,
how insane I was about this diet that I was on. I
yeah.
would bring my own food everywhere, but there has to be a balance because you burn out. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, it isn't sustainable, especially with children. And children, it's so tricky. And the one thing that our doctor has said is not to focus on taking away things and eliminating things from a child's diet, but adding in good things first.
First,
And
yeah.
that is what I always try with them,
Yeah. Good
adding
advice.
in an extra vegetable, adding in some blueberries, adding in something that's at least healthy, instead of saying, "All right, no sugar, and we're,
Yeah.
like, we're gonna give up gluten," and
Yeah.
like that has never gone well in my house. And
Yeah.
one thing I'll say, and this is, I mean, our experience with puberty, I have 3 teenagers now, and
Yeah.
so I've been through 3 different kinds of puberty with them. And for one, puberty was really helpful. For one, puberty was an absolute disaster and made everything worse. And if you think finding help for an adult is hard, try finding help for a teenage girl and hormones. And I mean, like,
Yeah.
nobody knows what to do with that stuff. Our doctor now in Atlanta does. So she is great, and she is well versed in all the things. But man, I had to do a lot of research, and for us, the hormones, like, the triggers were crazy. And now that we've ended up with this mast cell diagnosis, I mean, that really does explain a lot.
Really.
And but do you have mast cell? You
No,
knew
my
that.
cousin, my family is riddled with autoimmune, and my cousin
Gotcha.
has mast cell, and it is
Yeah.
an extremely bad case. Like, she's
Oh, well,
not in a good space at all. She's young. She's like 35 or something.
I'm
But yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
she does
Yeah,
crazy
some of those,
infusions.
I'm in some mast cell groups. You mentioned
Yeah.
groups. Some groups are helpful and some groups are traumatizing. And I would say mold groups, stay out of all the mold groups. Like, those are so upsetting and
They'll have you wanting to, like, just end everything.
oh,
It's
yes. I mean, they're awful. The
very
mast cell groups are terrifying. Mast cell, oh my gosh. Like, before I started cromolyn sodium, I went into a group, and I just, like, I think I asked a couple questions, and then I was terrified to try cromolyn, because I thought, I mean, these people are talking about how drops of cromolyn are causing them, like, to bend over in pain. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was terrified to start some of these medications because of the
yeah,
groups. And the thing I always remind people about PANS PANDAS, and this applies probably for all disease groups, the people that are in the groups are the ones that are in crisis and desperate for answers. Those are the ones who are posting the most.
Uh-huh.
And so they're the ones that are answering the questions the most. They're the ones who are posting the most. They're the ones that are
Right.
in there all the time because they are so desperate to like dig themselves out of it. So you get these answers that, well, is it based on anything, reliable, or is it
Yeah.
based on like some fear-based reaction?
Right.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know.
Yeah. No.
So, yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, it is it's it's just all crazy. Healing is crazy. It is not linear. It is the craziest thing. I've watched it with my kids. I've done it myself. I mean, like I said, I just had labs last week. I've been on 2 antibiotics now for like almost 9 months.
I was gonna
And
ask, is it still treating Lyme like that with long-term antibiotics?
yeah, yeah. So, well, I also have mycoplasma pneumonia that came back
Gosh.
high. Um, and some other things I can't even remember. Coxsackie, shingles, mycoplasma. I mean, like, and again, like, I guess if there's a message or a moral to the story is
Yeah.
that always trust your gut. Always trust your gut and keep pressing for answers because I knew something just wasn't right. And again, there weren't these loud like signs and labs popping up initially. It was just like a hint here, like the PT saying, I think something systemic is going on. And then,
Yeah.
oh, well, your thyroid is starting to look autoimmune. And like just these little hints here and there that kind of added up. And I had to keep digging. And so, yeah, now I'm on way more medications than I ever like, I've gone most of my life, like, not taking medications. I had my first child naturally, and, like,
Yeah.
now here I am, I have a pill organizer, and every Sunday, I get all my vitamins and my medications out, and so, yeah, I mean, I'm on,
So, it sounds like a full-time job. Sorry, that I think the connection stopped here. This sounds like a
yeah,
full-time job for you as far as
it
managing their health, your health,
it
turning o not
is.
not leaving any stone unturned over. So, do you and I know a coach, you said, but do you work as on top of all of this, or have you had to take a step back? Yeah.
So, for a long time, I have not been able to work. I
Yeah.
mean, and this was even before my own health came into the picture. I just kind of very slowly started stepping back. I was a health and fitness coach and then got my mindset coaching certification. And quite honestly, it all hit when I was getting that certification. And it was such a blessing in disguise because that is what carried me through the first couple years of getting the autoimmune encephalitis diagnosis and really digging into my kids' health and trying to help them. And we went through mold remediation. I mean, I haven't even really touched on that, but we were going through so many different things. And so I really couldn't work. And I'm just now able to start getting back into working. And it's a totally flexible job. I'm working for some friends and helping them with their business. And
Oh, good.
I don't really coach anymore. What I'm really, really passionate about is connecting with other moms. And my rule always is I tell all my friends this, I tell all acquaintances this, like, you do not have to ask if you can share my number. If you know of a mom who is thinking that their child might have PANS or PANDAS, or you just hear them say, well, my child had strep and then this happened, or I think we might have mold, or just anything that you've heard me talk about, share my number. Like, I am happy to connect with any mom
But
because it was other moms that helped me at first. It was other moms that actually diagnosed my child before we went through 13 practitioners and got an official diagnosis. It was other moms saying, your child sounds just like mine and they have a PANDAS diagnosis, or your child sounds just like mine and it was PANS.
yeah.
And so I'm just really passionate about connecting with other moms and connecting other moms with each other
Yes.
because that's how, I mean, again, that's just how I have made it. That's how every day I have been okay, through this journey is because I've had other mom friends going through
Community.
something similar. And
Yes.
it's I find it interesting, like, when I saw your post about looking for, moms with autoimmune, I was like started thinking in my head of all of the moms that I know that
Yeah.
have either been diagnosed since I've met them or have just had autoimmune conditions and diagnoses for quite some time. And I mean, it definitely seems to be something that we as women and we as moms need to stay on top of and in communication about because it is, there's that connection with stress, there's that
Yes,
connection with hormones,
for
and as
sure.
we age and our children, like, again, this all started as me just being a mom on a mission trying to help my children,
Correct.
and I backed into it trying to look at my own health that at this point, it wasn't just stress anymore. I mean, it's
No,
other things now too.
sure. There needs to be more community around it. I think a lot of times
Yeah.
moms don't want to talk about, I don't know, like I just feel like sometimes nobody really not to sound like nobody really cares, but like nobody really care like, I think about that sometimes, and so I
Yeah.
don't mention like, I think there's a lot of people in my circle who have no idea what I deal with, and that's
Yeah.
me. I
Yeah.
never talk about it. I don't like people thinking, like, to feel bad for me or anything like that, but it's really
Right.
not
Right. Right.
it's not that. It's more of just building a community so people
Mhm.
feel less alone because I do think
Yeah.
a lot of women just really don't know where to turn because
Yeah.
this
It
doctor's
is
saying
very
this thing.
isolating.
It's very isolating, and especially if you're a mom and you're just dealing with this on your own. Like I was diagnosed 2 years before I got pregnant, but I had a miscarriage shortly after I was
Mhm.
diagnosed, and then I had my babies, and I was doing all of this alone in, 2012 when my daughter was
Yeah.
born in the winter in
Gosh.
Massachusetts,
Oh,
isolated,
wow.
like,
Yeah.
not knowing community wasn't a thing. I didn't know anyone who had rheumatoid arthritis. So
Yeah.
I think there's a gap that needs to be closed, and
Yeah.
I don't know how we all find each other. I guess social media is good
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Um, and,
I mean, again, I've always been that mom that when I was searching for answers, I was online 24/7 and I would just go to Instagram or Facebook and I would just plug in whatever. Sometimes it
yeah.
was a symptom, sometimes it was like IVIG, sometimes it was, the name of a vitamin or whatever. Like whatever it was, I would just plug it in and I would just search and search and search. And I mean, I've
Mhm.
sent private messages to so many women over the years just saying, "Can I ask you a question?"
Yeah. And 99% of them are probably happy to answer,
Yeah.
just the matter
There was
of stepping out and asking.
Yeah, 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 and, I've made some of the best friends, like soul sister type friends of women who I communicate with on a daily basis, and some of them I still have not ever met face to face,
Yeah.
but they're like my best friends, and we communicate, and I know all about their families, and they know all about mine, and we communicate every single day with each other, whether it's via text or Instagram Messenger or Marco Polo or however we
However,
communicate,
yeah.
but, like and that again, that's what has sustained me, and so, like, my message always is reach out to me about anything that I've talked about, like, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody, but also don't be afraid to reach out to other moms, don't be afraid to pay it forward. I always and for me, this is the last thing I'll say, I mean, I could talk all day long, but, for me, there's this quote that I always have lived by, and it is, "When I feel helpless, I help others." And
Yes.
on this journey, I have felt helpless more times than I care to remember. I mean,
Yes.
so incredibly helpless. I mean, that's why you're up in the middle of the night researching, right? Like,
Yes.
if you're
1,000%.
feeling great about things, you're not up at 3 a.m. looking at mold or IVIG or whatever it is.
Right.
And so, on those days where I think, this I can't, like, what do I do? I like nothing's working. I feel horrible. This is happening, whatever it is. I just reach out and I help somebody else.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
there are days where I have no business helping others, trust me, where I mean,
Mhm.
my house is a disaster, I'm taking, a second Epsom bath and, I'm just like, I'm a hot mess. Who am I to help somebody else? But it's just such a lifeline for me, and it is just again, I've made so many beautiful friendships because of it. I've helped my children feel not so alone and isolated. I've made
Mhm.
them some friends through, other moms and stuff, and it's just been such a lifeline just to,
I say that often is there's a silver lining to this disease once you get through the
yeah.
or whatever disease you have or whatever
Yeah.
whatever dark cloud is following you around at the moment. There's silver lining, and
Yeah.
it might take you a little while to get there, but you can get a little perspective and look back. And I wouldn't live in Charleston, South Carolina, if I didn't have rheumatoid arthritis. We left Boston because of it. So here I
Yeah.
am, and
Yeah.
meeting you and everybody else,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's there's and you're right. Helping people takes the microscope off yourself for a minute, and
Yeah.
you can put it
Yeah.
into somebody
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
you
I
know.
always hesitate sometimes because I know we probably are a certain type of woman. I mean, we already have very full plates, and
Yeah.
it's full because we do too much, and we're type A personalities or what have you, and we just do and whatever, keep piling things on. And so I hesitate to ever say, "Well, go help somebody else." But honestly, I mean, I'm here to tell you that helping somebody else, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you go and cook them a meal or I mean, it's just, some days I just reach out to my friend Sarah and I just say daily pulse check. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes that's all we can do is just, are you still breathing? Yep. All right,
It's
good.
a text.
I mean,
It's a smile. It doesn't have to be
exactly. It's
hours of
sending a quote, it's just a little daily, like little pulse check. It's like, all right.
Mhm.
It's not saying, all right, yeah, I know your plate's already full, but now I need you to like start volunteering and I need you to cook some meals and I need you to donate.
Yeah,
And it's not that. It's just every little tiny little bit you do just to connect with another human. And
I love
I say another mom because, I just think we as moms, we need each other. And, just to connect with someone who's going through something similar, like that's just a little blip that helps keep you going.
I
It's really not more to your plate.
I
It
love
helps
it.
make the plate lighter, I think.
And because sometimes it's actually kind of a selfish act on my part because I feel so much better that
Oh
I
yeah.
am do that for my friend or did I do that for me? You
Oh,
know?
exactly, exactly. I mean, people thank me at times, like when I do these calls every month, and I'm like, y'all, it is totally selfish why I do it. Like,
Yeah.
I get so much from it, and I get
Mhm.
so much from speaking on podcasts. Like, if I help one other family
Amen.
get to the root of pans and pandas sooner than we did, like, I'm that I can sleep at night. If I reach another mom who, uh, doesn't realize that she's got mast cell or, whatever, any of it. Like it just like it makes it all worth it. So I mean, I do it all for selfish reasons. When I speak out on my Instagram, when I anything, like it is all for selfish reasons because it's like, all right, sharing my story makes me feel like there's a reason that we went through that pain. Like there's going to be something like someone's going to hear it and it's going to help them or someone's going to just something, it
So,
just makes me think there has to be a purpose for this craziness. There has to be, and
well, I love what you're doing and I think it's
oh, I
important.
love what you're doing.
And I think you're definitely touching people and changing lives and helping children and all of that. There's nothing greater. And like the moms community can change the world. We just have to like band together and do it.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
I would love that. Before we wrap up today's episode, I just want to say thank you for being here and spending this time with me. If this conversation resonated with you, it would mean so much to me if you'd follow or subscribe to the Autoimmune Mom podcast wherever you're listening, and take a minute to leave a review. It really helps other moms who are navigating autoimmune disease find this space. And if you know of another mom who might need to hear this message, please share the episode with her. You can also connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the Autoimmune Mom Podcast, where I share encouragement, resources, and up-to-date updates on new episodes. And don't forget, you can download my free Autoimmune Mom Survival Guide using the link in my bio on my socials. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and I'll see you next week at the Autoimmune Mom Podcast. Take care of yourself, Mama. Your health matters too.